This is the theme of Setback and Misery. Pause, Mimicry, select frames. And so Annie is now reading the new draft. And she is so excited about it that it's like she has to hold back herself, right? Because remember, when she tells him where to start, she says you have to start over from where Misery is buried in the ground, right? The book that she brought from the general store where he killed off Misery, well, she's buried in the ground as a result of having died through childbirth. And so when she reads this second draft, it's so it has such an impact upon her that she almost has to hold herself back. And he's looking at her, so you can tell that he has gotten a little bit better. His face looks a little different, right? Almost healed in certain areas of his face. He's still in a wheelchair. He's still got the sling on his arm, so that's going to take a little bit of time to heal, but there's definitely some healing going on. And so Annie is still reading, and he asks her, is it fair? Shall I continue? And she's basically telling him, yes, you should, right? And Annie goes into her own perception of Misery, that I knew she was born of nobility. And she's asking, can I read each chapter after you finish? I can fill in the ends, right? And in some ways, Annie can. In some ways, Annie has built a mastery orientation as a reader of Paul Sheldon's work, that she could easily become a critic of his work, a literary critic of his work, if she learned the tools of literary criticism. Because you don't just become a critic of the work just because you know how to criticize. You have to do some graduate work, write some papers like in graduate classes, have a master's degree, things like that, or a PhD, to sort of write scholarly, to learn how to write scholarly. That's what I'm talking about. And that she does have a mastery orientation as a reader of his work. So when she says, can I read each chapter after you finish? I can fill in the ends. She is most appropriate there. She's not appropriate as writing for him. She's not appropriate as really being truly an editor or an agent or publisher for him. But as a reader, and if you were looking at Annie maybe engaging a book reading club or something, and they are critically thinking about a film or a book, and they are referencing any other type of book in their in that immediate series, then yes, they will be definitely appropriate. So this is where, to me, she's operating appropriately. That she is a reader of his work, a mastery orientation reader of his work, and she could fill in is, and she has demonstrated her ability to do so, right? So yes, I do think she's operating here in a mastery orientation. And so then she goes into this spiel. She gets very happy about what she's read. And then, of course, referencing Misery Chastain and talking about her nobility. And she just kind of retelling the story and making all of the connections. And it's just exciting to her. It's Paul Sheldon bringing back her misery, both literally in terms of Misery Chastain as a character, and figuratively bringing the concept of misery back to her life. She wants to stay in her setback, essentially. That's why she doesn't really want to let Paul go, because she had been isolated so long, and now he's living there technically And so she wants them both to be miserable together. And then she gets into continually discussing the book. And then it gives him happiness. Again, this is an act. You know, he has no other choice but to smile. She's happy. He has to be happy, right? You know, have you thought about the times where you were trying to make a baby, make faces at the baby, right, to get the baby to mimic you, in a sense, right? You stick out your tongue, right? The baby sticks out the tongue. If you close your eyes and open them again, the baby closes his eyes and opens them again. If you do the patty cake or something like that, this is what this reminds me of. That whatever face Annie has in the moment, he has to create that face. So if Annie is happy, he got to create a happy face. You can tell he doesn't feel happy in this moment. He has no other choice but to use his talent to push out this work to make Annie happy. Well, really no different than what he's been doing with his agent and the publisher, right? He has to put on this face to push out, use his talent to push out content that he really doesn't want to write. And so it just reminds me of mimicry, you know, mirroring, or whatever face they give you, you give them back so that you can continue to get your check, essentially, and stay in the business. Because once you get out of the business, it's hard to get back in. When I lost my job in 2008, and it wasn't due to anything I had done, I was a adjunct faculty member, and so I didn't have seniority or anything. And full-time faculty members, even if they gave up a class to teach for the summer, but decided that they wanted to teach it, and you had already been assigned the class, they had every right to take it, because the district has to fulfill their contract first. They are the full-timers. And so it took, so then I lost my job, and that was between 2008 to 2013 during the recession, when I couldn't get back on with the district and jobs were kind of shut down, furloughed, you know, things like that. I didn't get back into the system until 2013, and that was due to a job fair. And so Paul knows he's got to put on this face, because if he doesn't produce another book, he's essentially out of the system. They only want people who are continuously producing for them in terms of capital revenue and profits and things like that, and producing in terms of promoting the publishing business, and then of course producing for him so he can get paid, right? But if you don't produce this next series, we're going to go with somebody else who will. And in some cases, the publishers will give you a certain amount of time to decide if you're going to write this book. And if you don't write this book after a year or something like that, we're going to hire a ghostwriter to write it, so we can continue this series, because the publisher knows the people want the series. Even if you don't want it anymore and you didn't plan on it becoming your life, that's beside the point. You keep it like you would keep a job, right? A job while you go after your dream, which is to write serious content. The same thing about a person, literally, like if you wanted to go after your dream, you don't quit your job. Keep your job, because that brings in cash flow. And then you continue to work on your dream and pursue your dream until it gets to a point where you can quit your job. Your dream is making you so much money, netting you so much more money, that it might just make sense to quit the job. But this is what is on his face, that he has probably likely had to show to his agent and to all of the parties involved in publishing. This face, whatever face they give you, you got to show. Again, it reminds you of a baby. And so this is where Annie is saying, can I read each chapter after you finish? I can fill in the ends, right? That sort of excitement that that enthusiasm about it. Again, Annie represents a great deal of the audience that Paul has really not paid attention to. You know, you sell books and you don't know to whom you are selling books and what they mean to people, you know, geographically. And so this is her sort of saying, I want to be a participant. And now in many cases, in this one case rather, he's sort of given her permission to be a participant. Now this is much more appropriate, right? Of course, he's been forced to write the book in his setback, but it's much more appropriate because she's revealing herself as a reader who has a mastery orientation as a reader, versus at the beginning of the movie, he was saying, maybe you should title it, maybe you should tell me what it's all about. She doesn't know anything about that. She doesn't even know anything about the work. And so you are wanting her to title something and tell you what the work is all about. But here is where she's actually most appropriate. And so then Annie is excited. Misery is alive. Misery is alive. She's going crazy in terms of just being happy about it and saying that she's going to turn on her radio and listen to Liberace and let him fill the room. And so again, she's excited because she's given proper permission this time. And so there isn't a weight on her shoulders of having to try to understand something, because the book that he's given her permission to fill in the ends on is something that she understands. See, there was a burden that he placed on Annie when he gave her permission to title and tell him what the book is about. That's a burden. That's not, even if she thought that book was a misery book, that was still a burden for her. This is not a burden because it's much more connected to what she already knows in terms of the Misery series. And she's read all of the books and she's prepared well. She can tell you the story front and backwards, right? And so giving her permission, the happiness that she feels here, it makes much more sense, right? There's a relief that comes over her. There's no frustration. She is happy with this newer draft, and she's going to do all that she can to be of service to him. Now she's serving him. Now she's not acting as a nurse anymore, like I noted earlier. She's no longer a nurse. That doesn't even make any sense to her anymore. She's a reader helping a author with his book now. You know, Annie is quite animated throughout this film. There are times when she shows us her true colors in terms of her frustrations and her anger and her temper that she actually labels as a temper. When she says that I'm not known for my I've never been popular because of my temper, right? And of course we know that there must be some kind of history with that. But when she gets into these animations, especially when she's happy about Paul's work, and right here she's so happy about this newer draft that she's going to put on her Liberace records. And she asks him, do you like Liberace? Now, I don't know for certain if Paul loves Liberace. Of course, he's going to respond to Annie and say yes, like a baby, right? Remember, a baby. The baby is going to lick out his tongue and close and open its eyes and play patty cake, whatever you tell him. So when she asks him this question, do you like Liberace? She's expecting him to say yes, right? Because why else wouldn't he say yes? I mean, who else would not love that singer who was Liberace? But her animations here, I do believe on some level that Annie is happy about Misery Chastain, this newer draft, and getting Paul Sheldon to rewrite it or extend the series, right? But I often have to wonder when you juxtapose her animations with her temper, which one is, we know that the temper is true, but I wonder if this heightened sense of enthusiasm is also true. And so oftentimes when we are animated, it is coming from a place of falseness because, we are putting on a show. I think we can always be happy and jump up and down and laugh and smile. But I think oftentimes when we are in front of people, I think we act. I think we put on a show. I think we get as exaggerated as possible. I don't know if it comes from a place of pride. It depends on what you are happy about in front of that person. If you are animated in front of a person because you just got a job and the other person, your friend, has been seeking for a job and has not gotten a job, but you jump up and down and say, I got a job. On some level, there must be some pride there. I think in one case, you can definitely be happy for yourself. It's possible to be happy for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. And you should be happy for yourself. But you could miss the opportunity to be a little humble in that moment. You could always go to your house and jump up and down and be happy for yourself. But to be happy for yourself in the front of someone's misery, it just calls into question whether your animation is founded on sincere happiness, genuine happiness. Annie is excited and jumping up and down and animated in front of a person that she is forcing to extend his series when he doesn't want to. So she can't be happy for him, right? She calls herself happy for herself, but she is so oblivious to the idea of how she is the cause of her happiness, how it has contributed to her happiness, that she had to literally throw lighter fluid on the person's bed to get him to burn his book. And then she dropped the printing paper or the typing paper onto his legs because she was mad that she had to go back to the general store to get better the printing paper that he uses. And then there are just other things that she has done, and she's jumping up and down and being animated in front of a person who has to put on a face. Because remember, she's also the one who who said earlier in the film that if I die, you die. Just to, insert that little word in there, sure, it doesn't mean anything other than the fact that I said it. No, it means a lot, right? And so I think she's very insensitive as a person. If you want to add words to really describe her, in addition to the one that she says she has never been popular for her temper, then add insensitivity, delusion, just a number of words, oblivious, right? And then of course, uncaring, unconcerned. It doesn't matter to me that you are struggling with your legs and you would rather be in another place than here, and that you haven't called your daughter or you haven't talked to your agent or no one knows you. It really doesn't matter, those things. The only thing that matters is my misery, is my setback, and I want to stay in my setback for however long I want to stay. And if I have to make you extend the series, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so that's something that I thought about when I was thinking about her animation, because I was going to delete this screenshot because I said it just seems a little bit redundant, and I gave it a rest, and then I got back up and thought about it some more, and I said she sure is animated. I mean, just really, really animated, especially in contrast to how she acts in other ways, right? So that's something that I want you to think about in terms of her animations. If you believe they are true, or if she's acting, We know the temper is true because she validates her own self as saying, I have never been popular for my temper. So when she demonstrates her temper, we know that to be true because she backs it up and says it's basically true, claiming it herself. She claims the word temper and applies it directly to herself. It's not some outside force saying that she has a temper, even though there is an implication in not being popular for her temper, that someone else has perceived her as being the type of person who has a temper, right? But she takes ownership of it, and that's probably the irony. That's probably the only thing she really takes ownership of in this movie. So that's kind of interesting. And so here Paul is asking Annie, would you have dinner with me? Right now, of course, he can't cook the dinner. She's going to be the one to cook her own dinner. But he's asking her if you would have dinner with me to celebrate Misery's return. But Misery hasn't fully returned yet. The first draft pages does not reflect a Misery's return. Sure, I guess in the first 1 or 2 chapters, 3 chapters or so, he is pulling her out of the grave, and maybe that is a way that she is returning in terms of her being alive. But Misery hasn't fully returned because the book hasn't fully been written. He hasn't fully written the book yet. And so that's why I think he's a little premature here. He's too early because his goal, we're going to find out. And remember the pill concoction he had created, pouring the red pills into that paper container that he's trying to drug her, right? Put her to sleep because he knows those pills work. They put him to sleep. But the problem is he hasn't finished the book yet, and he's trying to use these pills as a way to escape, but he's still not learning from his mistakes. He can't walk. And even if he was able to drug her, how long would that last? I mean, if he's going to drug her, she would have to. That was a lot of pills that he poured into that container. But how long did it really last? And see, he's never timed himself in terms of when he took the pills, when he went to sleep, and when he woke up. See, that's how you test out strategies for an escape plan. You become your own guinea pig. You were taking the pills initially because she gave them to you and you had to take them, and plus you were in pain. And then you started acting when you crawled out of the room and came back and pretended that you were in pain, and in some ways he was, right? And took the pill. And then you started basically hiding the pills. And so now you need to test out the strategy. First of all, when she leaves, how long is that? Right? How long is that? How many hours is that? I don't know if he has a clock in the room or anything like that. She doesn't leave him with the radio or phone, of course. But that would be an interesting thing to ask for a watch, right? Just to know when. So when she leaves, is it an hour? Is it 30 minutes, 45 minutes? Is it 2 hours, 3 hours, right? When she leaves, okay? When you take the pill, at what hour do you take the pill? And then at what hour do you wake up? Then it becomes a proactive rather than reactive strategy for how you might overtake her. Trying to have dinner and pouring pills into her drink is not an effective strategy because you don't really know how long the pills will last. So I said to myself, I just think to myself, he's still not learning. I immediately thought to myself that it's just too early. He's too eager to escape. And he still hasn't learned anything about Annie and her strategies in order to take her down effectively. Out of the 2 people in this scenario, he is the only one who is consistently down. He hasn't like I noted before, he hasn't gotten on his legs and tried to walk on them. He hasn't gotten on the floor again and tried to pull himself around or something, anything to try to exercise his body. Because even if Annie stayed asleep after being drugged, say for instance, the drugs did not kill her, but they put her to sleep for 8 hours. Okay, how long is it going to take for you to trek it to the main road? It could take 8 hours. It could take a long time. Well, I mean, that's arguable because it may not take that long, because when she came to rescue him out of the car, she must have been nearby. And so it may not take as long as we might think. Either way, he doesn't have a true strategy. He wants to escape so bad. And as I noted in previous areas of this film analysis, we want to get out of Setback so badly. We will use any tool, any strategy, anything that we think could work to get us out. But we haven't tested out that strategy. We have no way of knowing for certain if it's actually going to work. So asking Annie to have dinner with him tonight is too premature. And so she's, of course, shocked, right? And again, we get these little animations from her about being asked to have dinner with him. And because for one, it's unexpected. Why would he want to have dinner? He must be up to something. Our people, when they are kidnapping you, trapping you, taking you, or whatever, they always have a suspicion of how you react to them. No matter how, whether it's common sense, whether it's too thought out or something like that, they always have a suspicion, because at the back of their mind, they know somewhere where that they are wrong for trapping you, for kidnapping you, for taking you. And so how is it that a person who was resisting initially being there is going to now be more accepting of it? And he didn't really resist with her. He didn't, you don't hear him yell at Annie, call my agent, do this, do that, or whatever. You don't hear him yelling at her. You see Annie as being the primary aggressor. And so then you can look at Annie as more masculine, and then you can look at Paul in this context that's more feminine. He doesn't really challenge anything other than to say, why am I not in a hospital? And then have you, my daughter must be worried about me. I got to call my agent, things like that. But there's no real challenge, challenge of Annie. There is a little bit of resistance when he doesn't want to burn the book, right? Because who else, who would want to burn what they have written, right? But there isn't really just this whole sort of aggression on his part. And so there's always going to be a suspicion. And that's what I mean too. He's not thinking logically about the situation, that she's just going to all of a sudden be amenable to you in terms of having dinner and it just being an innocent thing. She's suspicious. That's why I say the faces that she gives us, the viewing audience, we can look at them and just completely expound on them in terms of the validity, the truth telling of them, the falsity of it, character development. There's a lot that we can do with just Annie's face. All right, like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more discussions. You can visit my YouTube channel for further film analysis. It's Favorites Film Analysis as the title of the channel. You can always send me an email and ask me a question, reginayfavorites@yahoo.com. My Overcoming Setback 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction book will become available around October 2021. I'm still doing some editing. The book does not focus on film analyses, but I use the content that I created for the book to support my my perceptions of Setback used as a theme in select films. So when the book becomes available, I will send out a notification video, audio. Thank you very much for visiting the channel.